Hi everybody, I am Helen and it's a pleasure for me to bring this webinar to you today. So the webinar is around how we can unlock our mental health and well-being. So I'm just going to find the right screen to share with some what we might consider quite basic things around sleep, movement and nutrition. And I'm really passionate about looking at these three subjects and how we can lever them to support us to be really mentally well. So a little bit about me. I'm a registered nurse and I've been a registered nurse for over 30 years. I'm also a trained life coach, and you could kind of think of me as an integrated mental health practitioner. I really look at mental health as a whole. How can we best support our mental health through all the avenues of wellness? So this obviously includes the three things that we're thinking about, that we're going to be talking about today, but also a lot of other areas around gut health and all that sort of stuff. Like, I really see us as whole. So I take a whole approach to mental well-being. And I'm obviously an Ignite support provider today as well. So today, what we're going to cover, the three pillars. And I'll tell you why I think of these as the three pillars, is that about 10 years ago, I was working in psychiatry. So I spent most of my years working in frontline psychiatry in South Auckland. And I got to the point that I thought, I think we could be doing more when it comes to mental health and well-being. And you may have experienced that you're not feeling that great. You may have gone to your GP. You may or may not have been offered medications, and you may have been offered some talk therapy. And these things are wonderful, and they can be super helpful for healing and recovering from a mental illness, or even just, not feeling 100%. But what I really wanted to look at was, what could we do to empower ourselves to be well? What else could we be doing? And what actually makes a person resilient? What causes one person to recover well or cope with stress well and another person not to? And when I was looking at this research, what kept coming up again and again and again are these three things: sleep, how we move, and what we eat. So I'm going to break these down, and with each little topic, I'm going to ask the questions. What does the research say about this? Why is it so important? And what steps can we take? And I really think it's about having knowledge, and having knowledge may make us feel more empowered when we are struggling with how we feel, and we have a little bit of knowledge as to how we can support ourselves. This is, I think, hugely empowering for us. So the three pillars, as I've mentioned: sleep and rest, movement, and food and nutrition. And I really like to think of these as a pyramid. And I like to think of it as a pyramid because it's an easy symbol to remember. But it's also something that you can imagine. If you're looking at these three sides, you might look for yourself and go, which one of these three might need a bit of adjusting or a bit of nudging? You might find that you're a bit short on the movement side, or a bit short on the food and nutrition side. And so it's kind of a helpful visual to look at and go, in my little triangle, my self-care triangle, what of these could I be improving? What of these could I be looking at? The other thing that's really important to understand is that there are many contributing factors to poor mental health, or to struggling with our mental health. And these three factors will support that no matter what the causes are. So I just really like to think that this is just a nice, basic, sort of stabilizing way to think about our mental health and well-being. So first, we're going to look at sleep and rest. What does the research say? Why is sleep so important, and what steps can we take? So lack of sleep is associated with poorer levels of concentration, decreased levels of resilience, and poor and mood disorders such as depression and anxiety. And I probably don't need to tell you that if you've had a really bad night's sleep, you feel pretty crappy the following day. You know that your concentration is not very good. You know that you're not as resilient. You might be more emotional than you normally are. Well, this research just says that yes, this is true. And obviously over a longer period, longer term, this can really be associated with poorer mental health. Studies in young people have found that sleep problems developed up to 3 years before depression did. So there seems to be this correlation between poor sleep or an association and poorer mental health, and that the poor sleep started before the depression did. And what some studies have found is that even if we treat the insomnia or the poor sleep, it can help reduce the symptoms of depression. So the thought is that the depression might be, that the poor sleep might be contributing to the poorer mood. Midday naps have been found to enhance alertness. So this is about the rest side of things, mood, memory, and reduce stress. We have to be careful with our little midday naps. They should only be about 20 minutes or so. You'll know when you've overslept, and it doesn't always feel good. You don't want to take away from the sleep that you want to be getting that night. So we've discussed a few things as to why it's important. Some of the other things around why sleep is so important, it reduces stress hormones. So those hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, sleep can actually help reduce those. And so we feel more calm. It can help regulate your blood sugar level. So one of the things that happens when we have a poor night's sleep, and you may remember this, especially if you used to go out and have very late nights, and then the following day you would be craving, carbs, fat. You really want that energy from that food. Well, when we sleep well, it regulates our blood sugar and reduces cravings. When we have a poor sleep, there's a hormone called ghrelin, which is released, and that is a hunger hormone. So actually, yes, you are more hungry the following day. It's supposed to give us better, obviously, mental well-being and a sense of confidence. Research has shown that we feel more confident when we slept well. If you are learning things and you're studying, sleep has been found to consolidate your memories and helps you to process your learning information. So it helps to remember what you've learned during the day. Sleep also helps regulate your immune system and reduces inflammation. Inflammation has been shown to be associated with poorer mental health outcomes. It also increases your energy, motivation, and concentration, which we've talked about. I just want you to have a good look at this little list, the causes of sleep disruption, because some of these things we have a little bit of control over. We may forget that these things might be impacting on our sleep, but screens, lights, and devices, we've probably all heard that before, that having bright lights in our eyes later on in the evening may disrupt our sleep pattern. Shift work, obviously, we may not have a lot of control over that. Alcohol is really one of those interesting things. A lot of people feel that it helps them get off to sleep, but unfortunately, alcohol also causes a really poor quality of sleep, and you're more likely to wake up later on in the night. Coffee and caffeine. We all know those people that can have a coffee at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night and still sleep through. There are many people, and it's due to genetics, that cannot process caffeine very well. And for some people, even one coffee a day is going to impact their sleep level. So if you are struggling with sleep and you're drinking coffee, it could be one thing that you could look at. Exercising too late in the evening, being really stimulated, makes it hard to get to sleep. Nighttime noise, pretty obvious. You want to try and reduce that as much as possible. Chocolate, there's a real trend now to have, some pieces of dark chocolate before we go to, after dinner, as a sort of a snack instead of dessert. But for some people, there's an ingredient in chocolate that actually is quite stimulating and will prevent a person from sleeping. So I'm sorry if that's your habit and you're not sleeping well. It might be something that you want to try and eliminate. Stress, obviously, we know what that's like when we go to bed and our brain just won't turn off. Sugar is another really interesting thing that can really impact our sleep. So I knew someone that had, they really loved snacking on sweets during the day, and they decided they'd also had a long history of insomnia and had tried everything for their sleep. They decided to do an I Quit Sugar month, and it wasn't anything to do with the sleep, it was for other health issues. And what they found is that when they stopped having the sugar, the sweets, the insomnia completely resolved. Like, she was able to sleep easily at night. So quite a revelation. Sleep apnea and snoring, and whether that's yours or your partner's. If it's yours, it might be worth investigating. If it's partner's, you might want to try sleeping in a different room for a couple of nights to see if that actually really has a big effect on the quality of the sleep that you're getting and how you're feeling the following day. So some tips for sleep and rest. We've already talked about the bright lights and the busy or stimulating activities. Getting into a routine is really important for that circadian rhythm, that sleep-wake cycle. We want to avoid lots of sugar or large meals, especially in the evening. One of the things that you can do is to expose your eyes to daylight first thing in the morning. So it sounds quite odd, but if we wake up and if we go outside, even if it's a cloudy day, you will notice that what happens is that you won't notice this, sorry, but what happens is that your melatonin receptors, and melatonin is called the sleep hormone, will get stimulated, and you will actually find that your melatonin levels start to rise during the day, and you will have your highest melatonin levels at night. But exposing your eyes to the sunlight first thing in the morning can actually support your melatonin levels. Research has shown that nighttime gratitude, so this really simple technique of 3 things that you're thankful for, can actually really support your quality of sleep. So sitting down, getting a notebook, what 3 things am I thankful for, can actually improve your sleep. Avoiding alcohol, which we've discussed, and another thing, writing down your thoughts. We've all had that time when we've gone to bed and our brain is just, don't forget to do this, and what about that? And it's really helpful to have a pen and paper by your bed and just jot down everything that comes into your mind, even if it's like, don't forget to buy the bread tomorrow, whatever it might be. And the other thing is to try mindfulness, meditation, and relaxation exercises to support a good night's sleep. So we're going to talk about movement now. And what does the research say about movement and well-being? Now, I like to think of exercise in the terms of movement. When we think about exercise, we often think about, we have to go to the gym, or we have to do a 5K walk, or it has to be something specific. But I really want to encourage you to think of movement as something that you bring into your everyday life. When we look at the research, they're looking at exercise, so where you're going to use both of those words. But we're going to look at, what does the research say? Why is exercise so important? And what steps can we take, literally, really? So what does the research say? Exercise has been shown in some studies to be as effective as an antidepressant. So close to 30% remission by getting up and getting moving. So this is quite significant. One study suggested that 12% of depression cases could be prevented if everyone just got 1 hour of exercise a week. So that's not a lot. And one study has summarized that exercise is an effective treatment for depression, with walking, jogging, yoga, and strength training particularly more effective than other exercises, particularly when intense. We're going to come back to that in a minute. So why is exercise so important? It releases endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and other hormones related to a positive mood. So it actually helps to stimulate these neurotransmitters and hormones that help us to feel good. It also helps reduce hormones related to stress, such as cortisol and adrenaline. And the positive effects from exercise can last up to 12 hours. So it can have quite a substantial effect on your mood. So we learned from that other slide that there were some specific types of exercise that were thought to be good for mental health. But other researchers also said this, what type of exercise is best for mental health? It's the type that you enjoy. So it's really important not to be put off thinking that we have to do a certain amount of exercise or we have to go to the gym. It's much more important to find something that you enjoy because you're much more likely to participate. Likewise, how much exercise should I do to support my mental health? As much as it feels good. And there's a reason that we think this way. The exercise that you enjoy is the one you're most likely to do. And if you believe you have to do a certain amount of exercise to get benefit, it's often a deterrent to doing any exercise at all. If you think, oh, I have to go on a 30-minute walk, you're doing 30 kilometers, that's amazing. If I have to go on a 30-minute walk to get any benefit, that can be quite off-putting if you're really struggling with exercise. So any exercise is better than no exercise. And I think that's something that's really important to remember and to remind ourselves. Research says that there's this lovely sweet spot, so between 2 and 6 hours of exercise per week. So not per day, per week. And that doesn't mean to say that if you're doing more than 6 hours, it's bad. It's just that this is the sweet spot that they've found is best for mental health. It's not too much. So what steps can we take? It's really important to think of movement and incorporate it in everyday life. We actually move, when we're doing the housework, when we're doing the grocery shopping, when we're playing with the kids, when we're walking the dog. We may not think of this as exercise, but this is movement, and this is incorporating it into everyday life. Anything is better than nothing. So just standing up and down from your chair 3 times, if you're working in an office and you do this, every 20 minutes, and you stand up, sit down, that is better than nothing. Short bursts of high intensity have been found to be best for mental health. So even if you do 1 minute of high intensity, that's great. Don't overthink it. Start small. I know when I was working in the hospital and I'd have a long drive home and I'd come home, I think, I really need to go out and go for a walk. I would literally open the door, put my keys in the door, by the side of the door. I'd shut the door and I'd turn around and I'd just think, right, I'm just going to walk to the first lamppost. You just got to get out sometimes. And then you're like, okay, I can walk to the end of the street. So just start really small. You don't have to put too much planning into it. Just make a small start. Do what you enjoy. Exercise can be done in divided times, 1 minute. Exercise is enough to start with. It all counts. And go with what feels good for you on the day. So now we're going to talk about nutrition and food. Now, nutrition and food is probably the most favorite topic of mine. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it is, one is that it can have a huge effect on how you feel, and 2 is that it's not often talked about when it comes to mental health. And in my 20 or so years working in psychiatry, nutrition was never really mentioned as part of a treatment protocol of working with somebody that's got mental health issues. So we're going to look at what the research says about nutrition and mental well-being. Why is nutrition so important, and what steps can we take? So what does the research say? There's a strong association between poor diet and poorer mental health. A diet high in junk food, so sugar and ultra-processed foods, trans fats, which are man-made fats, is associated with a higher prevalence of mental illness. And that people consuming diets high in fruit, vegetables, and plant-based foods suffer from less psychological distress overall. Now, you might look at this, and as I did, and say, well, it's not surprising if a person is struggling with their mood or anxiety that they're likely to be eating a poorer diet, because you need energy and you need concentration and focus to be able to prepare food and cook well. So there was this wonderful study that was designed, and the question it wanted to answer was, if I'm depressed and if I change my diet, will that make a difference to how I feel? So this is really looking at trying to answer that question. Is the diet contributing to poor mental health, or is the poor mental health contributing to the poor diet? And this study was done in Australia, and what they did is they got a bunch of people, they divided them into 2. Half of the group got nutritional counselling on how to eat a modified Mediterranean diet. So just some education on how to eat. In this case, it was what they called a modified Mediterranean diet. The other half got social support, which we also know is good for mental well-being. And what they did is that after 3 months, they looked at the two groups. And the group that had had the nutritional consulting sessions and who had changed their diet from a standard Australian diet to a modified Mediterranean diet, over 30% of those people no longer fitted the criteria for depression. So when they were reassessed, they were found that they no longer had depression. And I think this is fascinating. That imagine if we could take the group of people who are struggling with their mood, struggling with depression, we could change their diet, and almost a third of them could actually improve their mood. So food is actually really powerful. When we look at what the modified Mediterranean diet looked like, it was whole grains, it was fruit and vegetables, it was dairy, so kind of similar to what we would normally encourage in a good diet. Had quite a lot of olive oil, which is a little bit different, nuts, so these are the daily servings, and then weekly legumes, still lean red meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and they also actually include a little bit of alcohol in that as well. This is another study that I thought was really fascinating. So this is looking at prisoners and their antisocial behaviour within a prison. And what they did is they took a group of 231 young adult prisoners, they split the group in half, and they put half of them on a multivitamin, and it included some essential fatty acids, so omega-3s. And they wanted to compare the level of offending or the level of antisocial behaviour before and after supplementation. And this study showed that those who had the supplements on average committed 35% less offences. So they actually had a reduction in offences by about 35%. So really significant. We know that the food in prisons isn't good quality. So it's really interesting to look at this, and maybe that in this case, even if they just improve their diet, they may have had an improvement in the behaviour of the prisoners. You can even extend this out. What might this look like in the community as well? So why is diet and food so important? Food is information for your cells. Now that sounds like a bit of a strange statement, but everything that we eat and everything that we ingest, our cells, our body utilizes one way or the other. Some of it's obviously waste, but actually food is it's telling us we've got vitamins and minerals that actually help to make neurotransmitters, for example. So diet can really impact how you feel, and not only how you feel, but how you think and how you behave. There are important nutrients in these vitamins and minerals and in food that help to metabolize or make neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters are things that we need for positive brain health. A good diet actually supports a healthy gut microbiome as well. And a healthy gut microbiome, there's some increasing research around this gut-brain axis. It can help reduce inflammation, and we've already heard about inflammation being connected or associated with poorer mood. And we can help support our blood sugar levels by having a healthy diet. We know that that can definitely improve our sleep, and studies have shown it can improve our mood as well. Just going to touch on alcohol a little bit here. Alcohol consumption has been known to raise stress hormones during the day. So even if you're having a couple of drinks a night, when you're not drinking the following day, you are found to have higher stress hormones. Several studies have found that depressed mood, and I would say anxiety as well, is substantially alleviated within a very short time from abstaining from alcohol. So I've seen this. I've seen this of people that are really struggling with their anxiety. They've gone to see their GP. The GPs discuss what medications might be useful, and they're like, well, yep, okay, but what else can I do? And we've gone through, and when we've looked at their food diary and asked them to record what they're eating and what they're drinking, oh, you're having a couple of glasses of wine every night, and that's well within the guidelines. It's absolutely fine. But I just wonder whether this is contributing to how you're feeling. You want to try and reduce it and see how you go. And amazingly, stop the alcohol, and within a couple of weeks, oh, my anxiety's gone. I'm sleeping so much better. My quality of sleep's improved so much. So just some things to really be aware of. So all these are little things that you can look at for yourself. So what steps can you take? As much as possible, focus on plant-based foods. This doesn't say that meat is bad at all. In fact, there's no evidence to suggest that a vegetarian or a vegan diet is better for mental health. So you can include meats, but just try and make the majority of your food plant-based. Variety is so important. There's some research now that sort of says that if you have 30 plant-based foods in a week, this is going to be best for your microbiome. So it sounds quite difficult, but you can include nuts and seeds and herbs and a variety of all sorts of plant-based foods. Focus on what you can add. So sometimes when we think, oh, we need to change our diet or the way we're eating, we think of all the things we're going to lose. Actually, just really think about what wonderful things that you can add. Have some fun looking at recipes, trying some new dinner ideas, and focus what you can add into your diet. Obviously, vegetables, really important. Chew your food and take your time. I think this is the other thing that we get a bit, we forget that actually chewing our food, the digestion for our food starts in our mouth, and taking the time to chew your food and actually allow the digestive enzymes to do what they need to do to break down the food to get the goodness out of it is really important. Keep it simple. Eat real food. It's one thing I can really highly encourage you to do. And if you're going to remove things that really should be removed or that you can encourage yourself to remove are things like sugar and ultra-processed foods. So those foods in packets where you don't even recognise half the ingredients, those are sort of foods to reduce. So on the left here, we have the Ministry of Health guidelines, and this is changed from the old pyramid that we used to have. So this has got a strong focus on vegetables, fruit, and whole grains from plants, and even the protein. They're looking at legumes, beans, lentils, as well as seeds, nuts, fish, eggs. So a greater variety of protein than just meat, for example. And they also in here include milk and milk products. That would depend on whether you tolerate milk and milk products. And there's this lovely cartoon which I love. Can we swap out our antidepressant for an antipasto platter? But just to finish off, I'm going to introduce you to Jane. This is an example of how you can introduce this little technique into your lifestyle to support your well-being. So Jane is having quite a hard time at work. She has a boss that's a little bit cranky. She's feeling overwhelmed and she's really struggling. So what Jane has found is that she's coming home, she's thinking about work, she feels kind of exhausted, so she's coming home and spending time on the couch in the evening. She's craving, fatty foods or sugary foods because that seems to be giving her some energy and she feels like that's helping her cope. She's having a couple of glasses of wine every night because that's really helping her to wind down. And then she's going to bed, but she's not sleeping that well. Either she's not making it a priority, or her mind is just ticking over and she's not able to fall off to sleep. And we know that all these things are intertwined. The wine might be contributing to her poor sleep. The stress might be contributing to her poor sleep. The poor sleep's going to be likely to increase her food cravings. It's also going to be reducing her motivation. So we can see that all of these things are interrelated, and that actually, if Jane has a wonderful light bulb moment and maybe she goes to talk to somebody about how she can deal with a boss, but she's also got some practical ideas about what she can do to support her sleep and rest, what she can do in regards to movement, and what she can do in regards to food and nutrition. And she may do something like choose to go for a 10-minute walk as soon as she gets home instead of laying on the couch. She might decide to cook a nutritious meal. She might choose to stop the alcohol in the evenings and just see if that can help. or she might try and practice some mindfulness. So this is really about helping you to feel empowered. Now, how can you empower yourself to do small things to support your well-being? And this is something that I think is so important. It's the choices that you make and the actions that you take on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes we're out there looking for the magic pill. We're looking for the one thing, whether it's a superfood or a supplement, or even if it's therapy, medication. If you're doing therapy and medication, but you're coming home from work, you're not moving your body, you're eating poor food, you're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning watching Netflix, it's going to be really hard for you to recover and to sort of enter that healing phase. So I really hope that this gives you a good structure and a good understanding of how we can really unlock our mental well-being through food, nutrition, and movement. So open to any questions. If anybody's got anything to say, if you want more information, or if you want to know more, I have loads of little blogs on my website if you're interested in reading more about food and nutrition, or any one of those subjects actually.
Well, thank you so much, Helen. That was so informative. I know it was only a short amount of time, and so we had to get through everything real quick, but it was a really awesome overview of everything. So thank you.
Right.
We haven't got any questions yet, but I can kick us off while some people are thinking. So as we're heading into winter, it's getting very clear that sickness is starting to go around. Do you have any sort of tips or advice for people who are maybe not able to look after their well-being as well over that time because they're sick and, maybe not sleeping as well or eating as well and stuff?
I think it comes back down to anything is better than nothing. So even if you're bedridden, or you've got an injury, for example, what can you move? What limbs can you move? What can you do? So sometimes we get stuck in I can't, or I can't go to the gym, or it's impossible, or try and flip that round. What can I possibly do to support, how I'm feeling? What exercise can I possibly do? And even with food, sometimes we get a bit, we have to cook something. Look, at the end of the day, if it's meat and vegetables, it's fine. It's basic food. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Sometimes my favorite go-to, and this is something I did a lot over the summer, is I would buy a whole cabbage. I would put it through the food processor, make it into, thin like slaw. I'd put it in a big plastic bag. I'd put it in the fridge. And then every lunchtime, I could just open up this plastic bag, grab a handful, throw it in a bowl, throw some carrot, a little bit of onion or whatever you like in your slaw. And it was like, this is a base. This is something that I can start with. So I think sometimes we get a bit, we have high expectations of what we should be eating, and we think we should be eating like some food magazine. But honestly, basic and keeping it simple, I think, is probably the biggest thing that I can encourage.
That's so true. Thank you. Cool. We've got a question. Any views on how early you should eat your dinner before going to bed? This is a very interesting question.
Yeah, I would say, at least 3 hours before you go to bed. There is some, it obviously impacts your sleep if you're still trying to digest your food. And so 3 hours. And the traditional thought is that we should have quite light meals in the evening, and that's obviously not how most of us eat. Most of us eat our larger meals in the evening. So I would say at least 3 hours, and ideally we want a 12 to 16 hour fast overnight. So we really want that at least 12 hours, maybe up to 16 hours, where we don't consume any food. We give our gut a rest. It's actually the time that our gut does a bit of cleaning. It's got this wonderful mechanism, and that it actually helps to clean out. And so we want no food in our gut when that's happening. And so a 12 to 16 hour fast is the best way to go.
Wow, that's very interesting. How many cups of coffee is too much?
It all depends on your genetics. honestly, I've had people that 1 cup of coffee was too much. So I know people that just had 1 cup of coffee during the day. They thought, oh, is this impacting how I feel? They stopped drinking coffee completely, and their anxiety has left them, or that just edginess has left them. So unfortunately, it's something that you need to practice and just experiment for yourself as to what your body is like and what it can and can't tolerate. So for some people, they can have 3 cups of coffee, 4 cups of coffee a day, doesn't seem to impact them at all. They sleep fine. They don't suffer from anxiety. So honestly, you need to experiment and find out.
Cool, thanks. When the Ministry of Health talks about portions of fruit and veggies per day, what is 1 portion? Like, what does 1 portion mean?
One small apple. They sort of talk about it like 1 small apple, or a handful of blueberries. It's difficult because all fruit's different, but you might say 2 small kiwi fruit. So yeah, it is a bit tricky, isn't it, to look at that? But that's sort of the thing that they're looking at with portions.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. What are the effects of 1 meal a day fasting on mental health?
Okay. It depends once again on who you are and what works for you. Some people will find that wonderful, and it will actually support their mental health and well-being because it means they're not snacking, and maybe the snacks are the things that are the issue. It can support gut health in some ways if you've got gut issues, but for other people, their blood sugars just get a little bit too low, and so they need regular meals. So once again, it's one of those things that's it's a bit like the keto diet. For some people, the ketogenic diet works really well and they feel really good on it. And for other people that try it, it's just not their friend. So we're all a bit different. So yeah, once again, you can have a little play with that. And if that suits you well, then that's absolutely fine. But if you find you're hangry all the time because you're not getting enough food, then that might not be the best thing for you.
Cool. What is a good way to come off sugar?
Ooh. You could do it the hard way and just stop, but know that you're going to suffer from headaches probably for a few days and feel pretty awful. You could try and reduce it slowly. So depending on where you're getting your sugar from, if it's in your tea or coffee, just start reducing it. Instead of a whole teaspoon, have half a teaspoon. So it's totally up to you how you do that, and how motivated you are. If you want to do it and you're just going to say, right, that's it, stop, you are likely to go through a bit of withdrawal and feel a bit crappy. So just know that that's going to happen.
Oh, thank you. Is there a benefit to including probiotics/yogurt daily for gut health?
Absolutely. Yeah. So any fermented food, so yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, fermented miso, super helpful for supporting your gut bacteria and having a healthy microbiome. I would highly recommend that you add some fermented food into your diet. And actually there are studies that show that people that consume fermented food, if they're anxious, they can actually reduce their anxiety. So it's quite powerful.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I find it hard to block out the noise around my neighborhood as it's really loud. I usually fall asleep with headphones on with music. Is this okay, or do you have any other suggestions or recommendations?
Yeah. The only other thing is earplugs, really. But yeah, there's those little bands that you can buy that you can put around your head that have got little headphones in them. You could try, instead of music, depending on how stimulating the music is, you could try sleep stories, which can be quite useful as well. Or, calming sounds, like just the sound of the white noise. So white noise can help block out that background noise that you might be struggling with. It's a tricky one, I know. I've slept in noisy environments in the city, and I think in the end I just used to wear earplugs, unfortunately. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. In these times, how can we support our nutrition with affordability as the issue?
Yeah, I know. This is a big one. It does mean probably prepping a lot of your own food. And so if you think about things like legumes, beans, and lentils, they're relatively cheap, but they do require some preparation. So what I've done in the past is bought bulk, soaked them, cooked them and put them in the freezer. So it's about trying to buy in bulk if you possibly can. Another thing that I do for myself is that when I'm cooking dinner, I'll cook extra and I'll put some leftovers, maybe even before, if you're with a family, you might even do it before you feed the family, is put them in a lunchbox for the following day so that you've actually got your lunch already prepped and you're not like, oh, what am I going to eat? And I'm going to have to, go and get something. So buy in bulk if you possibly can. And it does mean a bit more prepping at home, which can be a bit of a pain, but if you think about the benefits, I don't know, to me it's worth it. And I quite like knowing what's in my food as well, because I think if you're buying food, even if it's good takeaways, things like sushi, they still put sugar syrup in it. So you still don't really know what you're getting at the end of the day.
So true. Does reading on a Kindle count as screen times? Does the light from it affect sleep?
I don't think it's as bad. Once again, you can try an experiment. You could try, not reading from a book at night with, depending on how good your eyes are, you still need a little bit of bright light. If you're having trouble sleeping and you are reading a Kindle at night, you might want to try not reading the Kindle at night and see how you go. Once again, it depends. If you're struggling, that could be an issue. But I would say that for most of those Kindles and those readers, the light's not too bright. You turn it down as much as you possibly can.
Thank you. Regarding 30 plant-based foods per week, is that 30 different types of food?
Yeah. So it's sounds like a bit of a challenge, but actually I was even looking at my muesli, my homemade granola that I make, and I was like, it already has something like 13 different plant foods in it. It's got oats, almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, linseeds, cranberries. So it's actually got loads. And then I put fresh fruit on it. So there's another, 3 plant-based. But it also includes herbs and spices and basically anything that's plant-based. So it sounds really challenging, but if you put some parsley in with your salad, even things like that count. So you can get there.
Cool. I drink hot water in replace of coffee. Is that okay? I've been doing that for a month now.
Hot water in place of coffee, fantastic. Yeah.
Cool.
I've done that for years, hot water. Yep.
Is there a difference between drinking hot water and cold water?
Not that I know of. I don't know. I don't know about that, but I don't. Not that I know of. It's all good water as far as I'm concerned.
Sweet. What do you recommend to support concentration?
Sleep, food, movement. Honestly, God, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but honestly, these are the things. Sleep is so important. Getting really, really good sleep. Making sure you're eating food that's not high in sugar or that's not a processed carbohydrate. So, slow carbs will actually help your focus and concentration. It really does come back down to the basics. Again, you may need some extra nutrition in your diet or some, just hoe into those green vegetables and that are going to provide you with lots of vitamins and minerals.
Well, following on from that, I've got a secondary question. Have you got any tips or advice for what to eat in the morning? Like what to eat for breakfast to help you get set up for the day?
Yep. So there's a lot of talk now about having having a breakfast that contains some sort of protein. So that might be eggs. It could also be like a savory start to the day. So you could also have meat and vegetables. There's many cultures that's normal to do that. For example, I make my own muesli or granola, but it's really heavy in nuts and seeds, and then Greek yogurt, which is slightly higher in protein. So the idea is to not have a breakfast that's sugar filled. And if you look at most of the breakfast cereals, just about all of them have got sugar added. So that was probably one of the biggest things. Reduce the sugar in your breakfast and focus on, once again, a whole grain, you know, hopefully a little bit of protein mixed in there. That is definitely going to support your energy levels and your concentration levels throughout the day.
Thank you. The food pyramid included dairy, however, milk is full of sugar. Is it really that beneficial to your overall diet?
So milk has a sugar called lactose, and it's not necessarily a bad sugar. I don't think that lactose is particularly bad, but there are many people that don't tolerate lactose, and it's quite a high percentage, like up to 25% of people don't tolerate lactose. And for some people, they don't tolerate the protein casein that's in the dairy as well. So even if you buy lactose-free milk, for example, you may still have issues with dairy. I think that if you don't feel good on dairy, then there's other ways of, you know, getting your nutrition, which is, you know, nuts and seeds and healthy vegetables, calcium, you know, fish, bones, and there's other ways of getting your nutrients. So I don't necessarily include, if it's me up to doing the little food plate, I would say that dairy is optional for you, for sure.
The recommended overnight fast of 12 or more hours. Someone's asked, how can I encourage a type 2 diabetic to work on this?
Depends who that type 2 diabetic is in your life, I guess. Education, supporting them, making sure that they, you know, try and have that meal at least 3 hours before they go to bed. They can sleep through the night. You know, if you're eating, say, at 6 at night, you're finished by 7, you're not eating breakfast till 8 the next day, that's a 12-hour fast. So, yeah, I don't know how you encourage someone other than maybe lead by behavior as well, like lead by example. That might be one way of encouraging them to take part in that. Show them this video. Yeah, it's a tough one when we want other people to change. Yeah,
for sure. And then I think we've got one more. Do you recommend light iPod music to help sleep? I guess that's follows on from the other question.
Yeah, and so once again, if you find it helpful, absolutely. I have no issues with people using soft music, white noise. That can be really beneficial to help you get off to sleep. It can help block out that background noise for sure.
Oh, great. So if anybody else has got any last minute questions, chuck them in now. I'll give you just one more minute in case you do. Oh, that was really awesome, and thanks for the awesome questions, everybody.
I'll just say one more thing. If people are really interested about how food impacts their mood, they can get a download from my website, which is a food mood diary sheet. It's actually a food mood poo diary sheet because it looks at gut as well. So it just is about writing down the food that you've eaten, how you're feeling during the day. It includes sleep as well, and then any gut issues, you know, whether you're bloated or whether you have a bit of a sore stomach. And it's just something that you can do for a week or two and then look and see if there's any correlation. And then when you try something different, you can look at it again and say, actually, I've noticed that when I've done this differently, I slept better, or I didn't have a sore stomach, or so it's a really good thing to have a look at.
Awesome. Oh, wow, there hasn't been any more questions in there, so we might wrap it up then. So thank you so much, Helen. That was so informative. I'm sure everybody got heaps out of it.
Fantastic. My pleasure, Marissa. Thank you.